Yep, there she is. That's my Tesla. People ask me, what do you do? How do you drive a Tesla? And my response is, well, I do a lot of things. I'm a handyman. Oh, look, there's one of my properties down there. They're picking up a pod down there at one of my properties. The tenants moved out. So I own a bunch of properties. I own this house right here, right next door. In fact, this is the first house that I lived in. And I bought this house here. We'll go take a quick walkthrough of this house. But people ask, what do you do? And I own properties. I go to the bank, I get a mortgage, I clean up the properties, I invest my time, I invest my money into these houses. I have a lockbox here. What's the code? And I invest my time and my money. And let me set you down here. In these properties, and then I rent them out, and then I work with people, deal with people. It's probably one of the hardest parts, is working with the people. So this property, there were tenants in for a couple of years, and actually when I lived next door, this place here, can't see that place, the lady who lived here said, hey, I want to sell, and I said, hey, I want to buy your house. So I ended up negotiating. I purchased this house from her, and I ended up doing a little bit of work. She had already put in brand new windows, and then I rented it out for about 2 years. The tenants lived here, and I think they told us they were going to have one pet. They ended up having multiple pets, and they didn't take care of the property the way that they should have. And so then 2 years later, here I am. I had to come in here and pretty much fix it up, clean it up, make sure that the AC intake was perfect. Nice and pretty, cleaned out, new, a lot of new stuff. The kitchen on this property, I didn't even touch part of the kitchen. Then I ended up putting these cabinets in, which I took from another rental property. I purchased this secondhand at Habitat for Humanity. This, I got it at a big box store. And I did put in new floors when I first bought the property. I painted it this kind of dark gray color. Tip number 1, paint all of your properties the same color. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Well, I didn't know that. This was yellow, I just repainted it the same yellow color. Redid the tub, the caulking. And I like to put these into my rental properties. So tip number 2, protect this area by the tub where the water can damage. It's just crazy. All the rental properties, and I ended up having to come in here and re-damage and re-caulk. So make sure you do it right the first time. I was not a fan of the pedestal sinks. I'm still kind of getting my toes in the water with these, but I like them because they can't get damaged so easily. Yeah, of course, if you sit on it, it'll come out of the wall. But tenants typically have little leaks and they bump the stuff under here and just causing more problems. So tip number 3, go with a pedestal sink. Here's another tip for you. Inevitably, when you own rental properties, this area is going to get damaged. The tenants don't care. So, additional tip, what are we at? Tip number 4, put door stops in areas for the door to hit so it doesn't damage the drywall. Now, here's a new one for me. I actually just learned this recently, but I took coat racks and I put them in this property so that the tenants can hang their towels here. In the past, I have had these towel racks that they're kind of flimsy and they tear out of the wall, and I end up coming into all these rental properties having to redo the drywall behind all these towel racks. So now I like to put coat racks in here. They're in here with drywall screws. I found the studs on those kind of camouflaged in there. So I think that would be tip number 5, use a coat rack in lieu of the drywall. Now here's something I didn't do recently. I didn't even think about it, but we just came in and replaced this fan here, and it's a brand new fan, brand new. There's no dirt on it yet, and I'm not going to put fans in rental properties anymore. I put these cheap $50 to $100 fans in here, and this area gets dirty, gets really disgusting. So if at all possible, don't put fans in properties. It's just more hassle than it's worth. Let's go to this next room. I actually didn't replace this fan in here. Then you get a hodgepodge of fans. This one was fairly easy to clean, but I don't like to have fans in the properties. So if that's tip number 6, I think my count is off. Don't put fans in properties unless you have to. You're just going to end up replacing them every year, every 2 years, because they stop working, they become wobbly, tenants break them, they just don't maintain them. So those are a couple of different tips I wanted to share with you. Meanwhile, we're at the end of the hallway here. You've seen these rooms, and I try to refurbish the houses, make them in a way that I feel comfortable. If I had to live there, I wanted to feel that, hey, I could live there. Yeah, that's no problem. You don't see nasty bugs in the corner or anything like that. Of course, maybe the paint job's not perfect, but you have to know when to cut corners and when not to cut corners. And after a couple days, couple weeks of working here, you're just kind of tired. You don't really want to paint every single nook and cranny, and tenants don't typically care. They'll complain, they'll poke their fingers at it and say, hey, what's this? But I mean, if it's a deal breaker to moving in, I'll paint the corner of the sink if you really need me to. So that's how I do it. That's how I afford my Tesla. I rent properties out, I maintain them, and I've learned a lot along the way.